This video is intended to be used as training for contractors who perform work outside the mill environment. If a contractor is to perform work in the mill, additional safety training is required. SDI relies on the professional efforts of SDI employees as well as contract and service employees to achieve its objective of being a world-class steel manufacturer. The safety and health of all persons at its facilities is a matter of paramount importance to SDI. Accordingly, SDI has developed general site rules for its workers as well as contractor employees and visitors. The purpose of this video is to help ensure that there is safe, effective coordination of a contractor's activities with the overall production and maintenance operations at SDI's facilities. At SDI, all contractors must receive an identification badge or hard hat sticker before working on site. Contractors will watch a safety video to review the hazards in the area. Following the video, contractors will take a quiz. A score of 80% or higher is required for ID badge or sticker eligibility. A separate form of identification is required to receive your SDI ID badge or sticker. Once issued the ID badge or sticker, contractors will display it for the guard whenever entering or exiting the SDI facility. As a contractor employee, you must be aware of SDI's requirements, policies, and work rules that pertain to your activities in our plant. You are expected to cooperate with your employer and SDI personnel in all aspects of your employer's safety program. You must know and comply with all safety regulations affecting your work. When you are working on our property, we expect you to report any unsafe acts and conditions to your supervisor without delay. In addition, we ask that you do not create any unsafe conditions and that you take the initiative to correct any unsafe conditions you may encounter that relate to your work. As a contractor employee, you are required, at a minimum, to have had the following training prior to starting work in any of our facilities: a review of your employer's safety program, a review of relevant OSHA regulations, EPA, and other safety and environmental legislation and standards, a review of emergency procedures, a review of specific SDI site hazards, a review of special project permit forms. SDI requires permits to be used under special circumstances. Confined space, excavation, and roof access are examples. Please contact your SDI representative to determine if permitting is needed. It is the policy of SDI to prohibit the use, possession, sale, and distribution of alcohol, drugs, or other controlled substances in our facilities. In addition, any individuals who exhibit evidence of drug or alcohol intoxication will be permanently removed from our facilities. Drug testing of contractor employees is required and is the responsibility of the contractor. All employees, contractors, and visitors may be subject to random personal and vehicle searches for alcohol and drugs while entering, while inside, or while leaving our facility. Contractor employees must conduct themselves in an orderly manner while on our property. Fighting, arguing, and/or physical threats will not be tolerated. SDI also prohibits the possession of any and all firearms, ammunition, fireworks, or other explosive material on our property. In addition, any weapons such as daggers, clubs, tasers, or brass knuckles are strictly prohibited. Any contractor employee that exhibits unsatisfactory behavior on SDI property will be removed from the plant. All employees, contractors, and visitors may be subject to random personal and vehicle searches for firearms or other weapons while inside or while leaving our facility. SDI requires that contractor employees wear the appropriate personal protective equipment in all work areas, including operating, maintenance, and field areas at an SDI facility. As minimum, hard hats, safety glasses with side shields, and suitable work shoes with protective toe cap must be worn. Additional safety equipment may be required by the nature of the hazard present. This may include, but not be limited to, hearing protection, respiratory protection, goggles, gloves, fall protection, and flame-retardant clothing. In the event of a personal injury, all contractor employees must report the injury to their supervisor. Contractor employees are not to rely on SDI to provide any first aid, medical, or ambulatory services. In special situations, SDI may give contractor employees assistance or treatment. The assistance and treatment provided will be customary to Good Samaritan. SDI will receive a written report from contractor supervision whenever a contractor employee is injured, is involved in an incident with property damage, or is involved in an event with serious injury potential. In the event of a significant injury or incident, SDI may conduct an investigation. Such an investigation may include inspection of the incident site, interviews of contract employees, the procurement of physical evidence, and the obtaining of written statements from contractor employees. At SDI, we place an emphasis on good housekeeping. We can improve safety in our plant by following good housekeeping practices, and the support of all contractor employees is required in this effort. Every contractor employee is responsible for maintaining his or her work area in an acceptable manner. Debris from repair and service activities must be cleaned up on a regular basis. Piling trash and leaving the piles for extended periods will not be tolerated. Inform your SDI contact before disposing of trash or waste so they can direct you to the proper disposal container. In cases where contractor employees must work in excavations 4 feet or more in depth, or in an excavation where an employee's torso, head, or shoulders will be below the ground, a system to protect employees must be implemented. Before any excavation is started, your SDI representative must be contacted for information about all known underground utilities, such as conduit, pipelines, tanks, and so forth. Excavations must be guarded with railings and barricades of substantial construction, and shall be erected by the contractor. Barricade tape alone is not adequate. All materials or equipment used while working in an excavation must be stored at least 2 feet from the edge or secured with retaining devices that are sufficient to prevent materials or equipment from falling or rolling into the excavation. A stairway, ladder, or ramp must be present in trench excavations that are more than 4 feet deep to allow employees safe entry and exit. As with overhead cranes, contractor employees must be trained and qualified prior to operating aerial man lifts. Safety harnesses are mandatory and must be worn on the platform with the lanyard as short as possible and tied off to the basket. Aerial lifts must be operated in a careful and responsible manner. Before raising, telescoping, lowering, or swinging the boom, the areas above, below, and to the sides must be clear of all obstructions and personnel. Adherence to SDI's fall protection policy is paramount. When working at heights greater than 6 feet and engineering controls are not in place to prevent a fall, fall protection must be worn 100% of the time. Overhead door systems are so common that they are frequently overlooked as safety hazards. Overhead doors are heavy and hang high in the air. They present hazards of being caught in, under, or pinched by the door. Other hazards include mobile equipment moving in and out, and blind corners. Generally speaking, overhead doors are not recognized as a path of travel if shared by vehicle traffic, and a designated man door is immediately available. When approaching an overhead door, always look for the man door. Man doors lead to designated walkways which provide better protection from the hazards. Although incidents involving overhead doors do not occur frequently, they can and do happen. Therefore, never walk through an unguarded overhead door. Contractor employees are not to perform any hot work such as burning, welding, cutting, drilling, soldering, or brazing in areas where combustibles are present without approval from an SDI representative. Adequate fire prevention measures must be taken before hot work begins. Special precautions are necessary when hot work is conducted on process vessels, tanks, or piping. All gas cylinders must be secured with chains, and all burning or welding equipment must be in acceptable condition and kept away from high voltage, gas and oxygen lines, and rotating equipment. Placing welding cables or torch hoses on or about passageways, ladders, stairs, and moving vehicles must be avoided. Flashback arresters must be used on all gas-cutting equipment. Contractor employees are responsible for worksite fire safety. Contract employees are required to provide their own fire extinguishers. Your work activity must never create or increase the chance for a fire. Adequate fire protection equipment must always be on hand and never be obstructed by equipment or materials. Never park vehicles, place equipment or products in front of, or block plant fire protection. All containers of chemical products must be properly labeled and stored in designated areas. Contractors must remove all unused hazardous materials brought onto SDI's property upon completion of work. While at SDI, contractors must follow all signs, especially pertaining to mobile equipment and the railroads. Contractors and their employees are responsible for taking proper precautions to prevent injury or property damage during mobile equipment operation. Contractors are not allowed to use SDI-owned, rented, or leased mobile equipment unless they have been authorized by SDI management and have been given proper training by their employer and abide by all regulations. Proof of compliance must be provided upon request. SDI Contact shall have prior notification of any mobile equipment being brought on to an SDI site. Vehicles and mobile equipment must be inspected before use, at least daily, and shall not be operated with defective or faulty functions. Operators must have a valid motor vehicle operator's license, if state requires, for the type of vehicle being driven or operated. At all SDI locations, mobile equipment has the right of way. Please note, the slag pot hauler is an extremely large piece of mobile equipment and has a limited field of view. Seat belts must be worn at all times when operating or riding in equipment and vehicles that are intended to have personnel buckled. Riding on the side, in the bed, or on the tailgate of a pickup truck is prohibited. All passengers shall be seated in the cab of the vehicle with a seat buckle on. Loose items located in a man basket, in the bed of a truck, or in vehicles or mobile equipment must be secured with restraint cords, rope, straps, or other devices to prevent them from shifting or falling off the equipment during transit. Always keep legs, hands, feet, arms, and body inside vehicles and mobile equipment at all times. Ensure steering wheels, pedals, and controls are free of dirt or grease that could interfere with steering or stopping. Windows, front, side, and back shall be clean and free of mud, snow and ice, fogging, etc., and not broken or cracked to ensure adequate vision. Spotters must be provided for cranes and other equipment in congested areas. For oversized loads being hauled on site, a spotter must be used to clear and warn all traffic ahead of load. Contractors are forbidden to ride on locomotives, railroad cars, or other transportation equipment unless it is required for the work being performed and authorized by SDI prior to work. Never stand or climb between rail cars, locomotives, or any other transportation equipment unless the units are separated by at least 25 feet. Never work on or near any locomotive or railroad car or track for any purpose unless required for the work being performed and only after track is properly protected. Railroad tracks shall be crossed at designated walkways if present. If designated walkways are not present, personnel shall cross tracks at least 25 feet away from the end of a string of rail cars or locomotive. Personnel must always be alert and keep out of danger. Unless required in the performance of the job, workers must remain off and clear of the tracks at all times. Never step or walk on rails. Always step over them. OSHA defines an 8-foot clearance to be maintained from the center of the track in both directions for the placement or storage of any materials or equipment. Never obstruct rail movement. Work that is in close proximity or on any rail line shall be discussed with SDI Transportation and Safety Departments prior to work taking place. All railroad crossings must be approached with extreme caution. Regardless of whether or not railroad stoplights are flashing, all mobile equipment and vehicles on site must come to a complete stop and look both ways before crossing over any railroad tracks. Because a spill or uncontained release of a hazardous material into the environment is a serious incident, contractor employees must immediately report any such event to SDI. In addition, you must immediately notify your supervisor and follow all established procedures that relate to the hazardous material that was released. You and your employer may be liable should you fail to comply with environmental laws relating to a hazardous material release. The SDI guardhouse has access to a weather alert system that will notify if there are any severe weather warnings. Should there be a severe weather forecast in the immediate area, the guard at the main gate will immediately notify all mill areas by way of the calling tree. See the SDI Emergency Contingency Plan. All contractor personnel must come down from man lifts, roofs, and come away from scrap storage areas and move into a protected area at once. If a funnel cloud is sighted, all contractor personnel should move to designated tornado shelters until the all clear has been sounded. Tornado shelter locations are shown by way of signage at area pulpits. SDI places great value on the service that you provide as a contractor employee. Although the work that you do is important, your health and safety is our first concern. Your work practices can affect not only your safety and that of your coworkers, but also the safety of SDI employees. We ask that you make safety your primary focus while working in our facility. Do not hesitate to contact your SDI representative if you have questions or concerns that involve your safety or the safety of others in our plant. Thank you for your individual effort in helping us achieve a safer workplace.